In this video we show how you can use server-side action scripting to populate a dialog component with data from a table. In previous videos we've shown how you can use server-side action scripting to save data from a dialog component into a table. But in this case you can see here we have a dialog component that looks like an invoice, and we've previously gone to the data binding section over here, and we've bound all of the controls in this dialog to tables. So if we go here and look at specified tables, you can see here that this dialog has been bound to a SQL database. It's a MySQL database that has tables called invoice header, invoice items, product, and customer. And in this particular case we're binding to 4 different tables: the invoice header table and also the customer table in a one-to-one relationship, and then the invoice header is linked to the invoice items in a one-to-many relationship, and invoice items is in turn linked to the product table in a one-to-one relationship. So this is where we defined all of the data binding, and we've done previous videos showing how you can set up the data binding. And then if we go look at our repeating section, you can see we have a repeating section that is bound to the invoice items table. And then if we go look at the individual controls, these are all the controls in the top level dialog, and we show here that, for example, invoice number is bound to the invoice number field in the invoice header table, whereas say the last name field is bound to the last name field in the customer table. And then in the repeating section, this is our data binding over there. So now what we'd like to do, let me just go and unbind that one field. So I'll just go here and say that variable there is unbound. I don't want that to be bound to anything. So now when we go and we run the dialog, we can see that basically there's our dialog, and but there's no data currently shown. We'd like to show some data when the dialog is initially opened. So to do that, we're going to go now to our server-side events, and in the onDialog initialize event we're going to go to action scripting, and we're going to choose this action here called populate a dialog with data from one or more tables. And we'll go here and we'll just we'll choose that action, and then we'll just give it a name. So I'll go here and say populate my dialog over there. And now we can specify options for this server-side action script. So we can specify what the primary key value is that we would like to use. So we could specify that value now, or we could read the value from a variable. That could be a session variable or a local variable. So I'm going to just go right now and say specify the value now, and I'll go there and say choose primary key value 4. So then we can say show debugging information, and then we can also say capture raw data, but I'll discuss that option a little later. So let's go ahead now and click OK, and then save this, and then go over to working preview. And we can see now that the dialog has been populated. We've gone and fetched all the data from the invoice header and the customer table. Then we've gone and fetched all the data for the repeating section, and if necessary we've gone ahead and added new rows to the repeating section. And then because we turned on show debugging information, we can actually see the SQL that got executed. So here's our select statement to retrieve data from the invoice header. Here's our select statement to retrieve data for the items in the repeating section. And then here is the JavaScript that got sent back to the browser to actually populate the dialog component. So you can see here that we're basically populating a JSON object. Here we go and we set the number of rows in the repeating section. Here we populate a JSON object, and then finally we call the dialogs.populate method, which goes ahead and populates it. So let's pause now and then pick this up in the next video.